And our next guest on the Rink Shrinks podcast is a pride of Charlestown, Massachusetts. He was drafted 85th overall by the Boston Bruins in 2012. He's played a total of 435 games in the NHL after a 4-year career at Boston University. Please welcome to the podcast, Matt Grzelcyk. How are we doing, Matt?
Doing great. How are you guys doing?
Good, really good. Nice intro. In Chucktown, the BY's roots. He's
Well, it's fitting too, Motts, especially right after Bunker Hill, Dave. Did you get out there and celebrate or what?
My parents actually came over the night before. I wasn't jumping into that madness. I saved myself on Sunday afternoon. So no, they just came over and we got a nice little dinner in the seaport, and they wanted to save their parking spot, so they took an Uber over and didn't want to deal with that traffic the next day.
No way your father has the Uber app on his phone, does he?
No, my mom hooked that up. No. He doesn't know how to text message. He holds it with one hand and then he does the pointer finger. It's embarrassing.
Oh, that's unbelievable.
Still sending smokes. He wants you to have a beeper.
Yeah.
I actually made my way over on Sunday. I did a nice little Father's Day road race down here where I live, and then we made our way over to the parade. We're at the top of Auburn Street for a couple hours. I missed a little bit of the beginning, but it was always a good day in Chucktown to catch up with family and friends, and everybody gets so busy, and I miss a lot of my aunts and uncles just from being crazy during the winter. So it's a day that's marked on the calendar, and if we don't make it over there, you find yourself in the doghouse pretty quickly.
You're going to hear about it. I feel like it's the one day where everyone in Charlestown is actually positive for once and just wants to have a good time.
Exactly. Well, let's get into things. Obviously, growing up a city kid, obviously had a great, youth hockey experience. I know you played with you guys had a wagon growing up, right? And did you play a year up with Jimmy Vesey and those guys, or am I wrong in remembering that?
Yeah, I for most of my childhood I played up a year just because that's a lot of kids from around the area. Brendan Collier as well.
Yep.
Jimmy
Vesey, I saw Brendan on Sunday.
Fiddler. Yeah. They were all a few months older than me, and I was a January birthday, so just kind of made sense to go with them, and that was the start of we had some really good teams as a kid, and that was just getting able to play against the best competition, something that helped me a lot make it to where I am today.
Well, who were some of your early influences during that time in Charlestown? Some of the coaches, or some people that you looked up to, and maybe even older players when you're just a young guy?
Jimmy Vesey's dad, for sure. He was local legend. Actually, when we went out to dinner Saturday, we ran into them. They were at the same restaurant, so always great to catch up with him. And he's been a huge supporter of mine ever since growing up, and someone that I still talk to this day and look to for advice. And just to hear his stories is a treat for me. And yeah, he was a huge influence for me growing up. And Mark Fiddler was another coach for us as well, and he had an unbelievable career at BU. So just to be able to learn from those two at an early age, I think set me up for success.
I think that's great, and obviously it's unbelievable you bring up Jimmy Vesey, and we had him on a while back. We had both Jimmy and young Jimmy on, and Big Jimmy's recall of stories, and obviously his career was kind of I think if he played in this era, with his goal scoring ability, especially the way all my uncles talk about him, and he was big, strong, power forward, but had a ton of skill to his game. But the stories he can tell, it's like he played 2,500 games in the NHL. It's incredible, his recall.
Yeah, it's insane. And just, I feel like as a kid that did help so much. His knowledge of being around the game and what he can recant is unbelievable, even to this day. The people that he knows, and you mention one name and he goes on the tangent for 10 minutes, and it's a special gift that he has. Honestly, it's so entertaining, but also he has a ton of knowledge as well.
Yeah, I loved having him on. We just kind of went off the rails a few times and just went down the rabbit holes.
Like we need to do this at the in the back room at the Knights here at the members lounge. This it would have been even.
It'd be a 5-hour podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
We'd still be there.
Yeah, no.
But he
you'd
knows
have
how
the
to
best
play the
stories
game.
going.
I was at the BU game, a playoff game this year. We ended up in one of the suites, and he walks in. He's working for Toronto now. He walks in with Brendan Shanahan and his son. He's got them both towny sweatshirts. I'm like, this guy just knows how to. I'm like, Jimmy. I'm like, please tell me you brought them on an ice tour. He goes, oh yeah, Brian. He's like, B. I brought him. Took him by the monument. I did this. I tell him this story. I'm like, it's unbelievable.
And they must have absolutely loved it too. Like guys like that would just like, you don't get to see that every day. And he's just cut from a different cloth. It's definitely one of a kind.
Now, was there anybody that you kind of modeled your game after?
I would say just as I got older, a guy like Brian Rafalski, he was, the NHL kind of at that point didn't really have a ton of small defensemen, but he was able to make it work. And I think I kind of had to learn that you kind of have to pick your battles and just know that you're not going to be muscling guys in front of the net and use your stick and your skating ability to your advantage. So a guy like him is, as hockey became more serious for me, is someone who I watch very closely.
Now, to that point, was there any coaches in particular that really helped guide you in that direction, or did you pick it up on your own by watching and kind of modeling your game after a Rafalski type player?
I would say like going to the Mass Satellite camps in the summer, they helped a lot. That was like kind of like my first introduction of we watched video. I never did that as a kid. I just loved playing the game and loved watching it on TV. And I think, just growing up around that was kind of the first introduction into, you can kind of, study the game more closely and be more attentive that way. So I would say just being around that just kind of opened my eyes to, how much work does have to be put in off the ice in order to be better on the ice.
Well, I mean, that's one of the things that I've really noticed in your game. And when, kind of teaching younger kids, maybe undersized defensemen, just a simple comparison when Torrey Krug was on the team and, you see his approach versus your approach, your skating ability, you're getting in the way, you're not trying to overpower anyone physically, but you're using your assets to the best of your ability. And I think that's so important, and getting to the spot before they do, so you're not on the wrong side of the battle. And so I tell players to watch you and understand that you don't have to be the biggest, strongest, fastest guy. You just have to use your head and defend correctly. So you're a good example for young players, that's for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think, when I became a pro player, the first coach who I really had that conversation with was Bruce Cassidy. He's a super smart hockey mind, and he kind of pulled me into his office and just kind of made me aware of like, you do have to pick your battles. And once you make it to this level, the guys are just so much bigger. But if you can trust your, hockey IQ and just know where guys are going to be, or you can steer them in a certain direction, with your stick or, the angles in which you skate, then you can have success in this league. And that kind of, I had never really thought about hockey that way up to that point. It just, you're just out there playing, you're having fun. But he kind of, opened my mind into more of an X's and O's, and maybe I could make guys go certain ways. So I credit a lot of that to him.
Another thing I just want to add was I was scouting with Chicago and watching. BU was one of my teams, and you do it consistently at the highest level. But was there ever, say a coach, or you just see it, when you escape to your forehand, your skating is extremely good, and you use the middle of the ice very well. Is that something that was encouraged by coaching staffs, or is that just something that you just naturally felt comfortable doing?
I think growing up, I think that was always a strength that I had, and able to see the game and have a good feel going back. For pucks on breakouts. But I think when I was at BU is kind of really where that took off a little bit, and we practiced going against a heavy forecheck a lot during practice, and Coach Quinn there encouraged me to be more creative and just trust my feel for the game versus, once a puck is dumped in, I'm not always going back with a plan. It's kind of sometimes it is good to just read the play a little bit, and I feel like having a trust in a coach like that, and I think that kind of carried me a long way into making it into pro hockey.
Oh, that's great stuff and great words of wisdom by coaches. I wanted to get back to a little bit of the childhood, and you talked about that hockey sense and that creativity, and I know you've obviously always been kind of a power play wizard even from a young age, but growing up in Charlestown, Eden Street Park, roller hockey, street hockey, ball hockey, whatever you want to call it, you guys were a staple down there. And do you credit a lot of your creativity and your hockey IQ to that stuff?
A ton. I kind of get asked that a lot, but I think that
well, I never heard it before, so I didn't recycle the question.
No, I mean that I get asked by like parents, like what's one thing that kids can continue to do outside of hockey, and I always tell them that I had friends who I grew up with. We were addicted to playing roller hockey as kids, and that was something that when you're out there, you're just playing for the love of the game, and you're trying to make things happen that you probably never would in ice hockey. You're probably going to get yelled at for some of the stuff that we were trying, but that just developed those skills at such a different level. I felt like my mind when I was out there playing, I almost felt like a forward, as a defenseman, and I'm just out there trying. I'm toe dragging last guy back, and not that you should be doing that all the time, but I feel like you do develop certain skills that way. And I grew up a street over from the roller hockey court that every kid ended up playing at, so I can remember Saturday mornings, like no alarm clock. I literally would just go over there. Like we didn't have cell phones back then, so you would hear the ball hit the cage fence, and that was like my cue. I'm like, all right, I'm going over, and we would just be there all day, Saturday, Sunday. Like that was the best times ever.
Just sleeping in your rollerblades.
Yeah, pretty much. Might have been a little too addicted, but those are the best times, and something that I still look back on and talk about with my friends from home.
No, it's great because it's growing up as a city kid, and I grew up just outside, obviously, but we talk about that a lot. And my kids growing up in Dorchester, which is another part of the city here, they're down the park all the time, and they're just playing. And they, some of it's a little bit more organized in terms of street hockey leagues on feet. Others are, the kitchen cups and the salty 3-on-3 and all these different tournaments that are kind of, there's the other one over in West Roxbury. I can't think of the name of it now, but like so many of those tournaments, it breeds that competitive environment, and you have kids that maybe aren't even the best hockey players, but they just go out and compete and they work, and you learn real quickly. Like even that last guy back toe drag, like you might beat the guy, but that guy's coming back with a two-hander because he's playing for $50. He's playing for his lunch money in those tournaments.
No, it's so true. I think that like you said, like some guys are just out there for a good time. Some guys are out there to like actually make money. Like it's kind of like pro hockey. Like some guys are like blocking shots in a lane. Like that's literally their job. Like that was kind of like an eye-opening experience. And like you said, like you're literally out there with a stick and skates. Like you might break a leg. Like you gotta keep
sliding on asphalt. I love that. Yeah. Lay down, block a shot. I remember playing in college, like playing at UNH, coming home, and it's like, all right, I can't get hurt playing in something like this. And then you see guys diving, laying out for.
Yeah, you think it's like a good idea to maybe play, and then you see like one guy just take one off the chest, and you're like, I can't.
How are you gonna do with this?
How are you gonna tell Coach Millie like? Yeah, I was playing in the Dorchester tournament. I'm out for the season.
But the team won, the Gavi Cup.
Exactly.
One of those, it's like it was worth it.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, if you win, it's all worth it.
Yeah, I get the street cred now.
Yeah. Gotta build the rep up a little bit.
Exactly.
That's great.
So as far as like playing other sports, you played a ton of street hockey. Did you play any other sports, as a kid? And with you had a good crew of guys, good athletes. What other sports did you play?
Yeah, I played baseball just through Little League. Didn't really fall in love with it that much. But lacrosse was one that I loved growing up. That's very similar, I feel like, to hockey. And kind of being a midi, you have to play a little bit of offense and defense. So it was another good way to develop, hand-eye coordination, certain skills like that you can't always pick up. I think if you're playing hockey year-round, it is tough to. I feel like you hit a certain age and you might fall out of love with it. And I tell kids all the time that I think it's super important to play those other sports. And even if hockey is your passion, there's certain things that can help you become a better hockey player that way.
Yeah, it's really good. I mean, that's what we try to stress here. And what we say is like, just don't be a backyard loser. You don't have to have organized sports to play other sports. Go pick up a ball, throw it around with your buddies.
Yeah, and it helps you be social as well.
Exactly.
Be a normal kid. I think that's so important and kind of gets lost in today's society a little bit.
Can you throw a spiral?
No, well, not anymore.
Definitely.
We might have to have like a backyard loser competition.
A couple of shoulder surgeries and stuff, I'm sure, mixed in.
I've had both done, one each. So it is like I played wiffle ball with my little nephew, who's he's getting a little bigger now, and I was going to fetch balls and throw them back to him, and I'm like so embarrassed I can maybe make it halfway. Like I'm like can't even hit the cutoff guy. So I think those other sports are kind of behind me now, unfortunately.
He's more of a horseshoe guy now, Motts. Underhand.
Bag
or
can
jam, maybe.
Can jam.
Yeah,
maybe
some of those games.
The old beanbag toss.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a little better on the shoulder, I'd say.
Exactly.
Especially when you get the drinks flowing, you don't feel the pain as much.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 100%. Muscle memory, though. You just want to hit the board.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll talk about that decision. Obviously, growing up a city kid, you made a decision to go to Belmont Hill for high school. What was that like? What was that transition?
Yeah, my dad, he had actually been helping out with the JV hockey team for like 10 years. So when I was a young kid, he would kind of have me up there and I would skate around with some of the JV guys just to, get some free ice and play against some older kids. So I was kind of introduced to the school at a young age, and going through that process, it was a no-brainer for me. Wanted to go there, already knowing some people as well. So such a good school educationally, and that was really important to my family. So only ended up being there for 3 years, but 3 years that I, credit a lot to, where I ended up going. They were huge for my development, not only with hockey, but academically. School wasn't always coming easy to me, so I really had to learn just how to grind, honestly.
Learn how to learn.
Yeah, exactly. Learn how to do homework for 5 hours a night. But I feel like it just kind of made me grow up a little bit faster, and that was huge for me.
That's great. Yeah, giving you good study habits. I'm sure you have lifelong friends from your time there as well. And can you talk about your decision to go out to the national program?
That was I'm very happy about that. It was pretty tough because I did love Belmont Hill so much, and it was going really well for me there. But it was just kind of an opportunity that was really tough for me to pass up. I had made the 40 camp, where they invite the top 40 kids there for a tryout. It didn't really go well for me. I was just so undersized. You're there with, the boxing coach, Kurt Kulik. And we're like working out. I don't know if I'd ever worked out in my life after that point. I was so sore. I could barely skate on the ice, had a bad showing. Did not get asked at first. They had asked, they had committed most of the team, and they had asked like 7, 8 defensemen. They all said no because they weren't sure if they were going to play. And then they asked me after, and I said yes immediately. My parents were like, "What are you doing? Like, you're going to go out there, you're 140 pounds, you're not going to play." But I had one thing on my mind, and I just knew how well they developed kids and how important, the off ice training there was. And I just thought that I had to do that if I wanted to continue playing past college, or just to give myself a shot. And I decided to take a chance, and I think that's kind of where my career started to take off a little bit. And I credit so much of that development to those 2 years. And I still have a ton of friends who play in the NHL who I'm still really close with, even guys who don't play in the NHL who aren't playing hockey anymore. We had a really tight team, and having to live with the Billet family was another, learning experience, and also helped me grow up before college. So that was huge for me.
Did you find the transition difficult just going, and I say this like most city kids, they're kind of, they're a little bit homebodies, I would say, right? Like they just, have their crew and hang with, and like I'm kind of relating it to my kids, right? And my oldest is off, and he's at Cushing, which is, an hour and 15 minutes away. So it's close enough, but, he's still boarding there. But was that transition difficult to go from being, a kid that grew up in a town of basically 1 square mile to Ann Arbor, Michigan? Well, you guys were in Ann Arbor at the time, right?
Yep. And yeah, it was really tough for me. I wasn't really prepared for it. Like, and I was, probably a little naive to the fact. I thought it'd be a little bit easier, but up until that first break, I think your first break out there is like Thanksgiving. So for, I don't know, 2.5 months, it felt like 3 years. Like every day I was just wanting to come home. Like hockey was so difficult. All the training, like I had never done that before. I was just like, I had to take 3 and 4 hour naps every day just to make it through. Like I was just so undersized at the time. And after that point, I kind of, I not resented the decision, but at first I was just like, man, I miss my friends so much. Like I had only known, Charlestown's a very small place. Like everyone knows everyone. Like I had the same people who I grew up with till I was 16 years old. Like I had no other experience. But then after my first year, I was kind of like, obviously it's exciting to come home, but I was like itching to go back. And then that's kind of new where my experience the second year, going to play against college teams, coming back to play against BU, like it had changed a little bit. And I'm kind of thankful that I was able to go through that. And I just think it helped me mature off the ice big time.
Yeah, just having some adversity though too, not just on the ice, but not socially really, but just being away, some adjustments that you have to make, and definitely. I'm guessing that it helped you grow as a person, off the ice, which helped you kind of translate that to on the ice.
Yeah, big time. I think just like little things like my billet parents making different food than my mom. Like my mom's cooking. Like I just had my mom's cooking my whole life. They were unbelievable. Had so much patience with us. Thankfully, I got to live with Frank Vetrano as well. So it was another guy. Yeah, Frank was like 230. I was
going to say he was eating for both of you.
Yeah. So I think I credit Frank a lot. We had some late night egos a lot together out there. So he helped me put on weight pretty quick. But just having him there just helped my experience so much. We were kind of going through the same thing together. So, we were learning on the fly, but it was nice to have someone who, I grew up with and was comfortable with.
Oh, that's great stuff. He's a character. We had him on not too long ago, and obviously played with Keith in Florida, so I got to know him a bit. And He's funny and classic person.
One
for
of a
sure.
kind.
Yeah.
His mom would wheel in some Antonio's Grinders. I don't know if you guys know that's his family's restaurant.
Yeah.
They're the best people ever. And man, they're just stories for days. I love them.
He was telling how he couldn't even get a job at the pizza shop during his when he kind of had the incident at BC and that transition year.
I forgot about that.
He's like, my parents wouldn't even hire me to sweep the parking lot.
That's an all-time low at that point. That's how you know you screwed up.
Exactly.
I love Frank.
Yeah, he's awesome, and good to see him have a ton of success this year, especially in the goal scoring category. This, the decision as a Boston boy to, I guess ultimately the goal for most guys is, playing in the Bean Pod, playing in Hockey East. What was that the decision like to go to BU?
Yeah, that was like you said, growing up here. It was BC or BU for me, to be honest. Tough to really think about any other schools at that point, but one of the best decisions I ever made. I still have, lifelong friends outside of hockey who I'm still really close with. But yeah, that we had some really good teams there, and getting the chance to play in the Bean Pot was obviously something that I couldn't pass up, and so thankful to have won that, and some of the best memories I've had in my life so far.
Yeah, just coming back home to a school that there's been a Charlestown connection going back years, to BU, and as far as your comfort level and good coaching, good teammates, you guys had great success there. Was there any times in particular where you were like, oh, maybe I should have went to BC?
I actually
wants to try to get.
I'm trying to get,
I actually wanted to go to BC for a little bit. I grew up a BU fan my whole life. I went to games at Walter Brown, got pizzas and chicken parms at T. Anthony's all the time.
Oh yeah.
But then when I went to Belmont Hill, it kind of had that BC feel a little bit, and I love Belmont Hill so much.
Little yuppie school.
Man, BC was winning national championships every other year at that point. So I was like, you know what? Maybe I'm a BC guy now. And they never came through. BU, they had kind of offered me right away, something I didn't expect. And I kind of held out because I was still really young at the time, but I was honestly kind of hoping that BC might come along as well, but never did, and ended up being, a great decision for me. So, yeah, sorry to.
Wow, Mott. So BC, what a fumble!
I know. I knew he was in the mix.
Turned me down.
Yeah, that's messed up.
They started offering kids who were younger than me. I'm like, you know what? I'm going back to BU. What am I thinking?
Oh man!
Every time you play BC, you want to stick it to them.
Yeah, seriously. That definitely had a little bit extra added to it. Although just playing in those games in general, I mean, those are exactly what you dream about as a kid. So, yeah, getting those opportunities is something I still look back on, and those are some of the best times of my life.
So you had a couple big moments while at BU, and a couple of them I can think right off the bat I want to ask you about was the game at Fenway when you scored in the celly, right? Was like a swing and a home run, right?
Oh, no, that was Dave Warsofsky.
Oh, that was Dave. That's right. Shit.
But he was number 5. Actually, when you asked the question earlier, he's another guy who I admired as a kid. And when I was going through the recruiting process, I think that's actually a huge reason why I ended up being number 5 at BU is because of him. And he had so much success as a smaller guy, and relied on his skating ability. So that was a big reason why I wanted to go to BU.
What a fumble on that end by me, but
I wish that was such a cool salary.
That was sick. I can't believe that but I was definitely at the game when you scored in the Bean Pot.
Yeah.
So I'm not
That
going to
was
go
obviously
0 for 2 on
that
that.
was obviously a pretty big one. We had such a good team that year, and I think I can remember going up to Eichel right before the first draw, and I'm like, looking back on it, I probably put a little too much pressure on, but I'm like, you got to end this first shift. Like, you got to just please put us on your back. He ended up drawing a power play like 5 seconds into the game, and you dream about those scenarios as a kid, but once the game happens, you're out there playing, and puck ended up squirting right on my stick, and I kind of had no other option but to shoot it, and went in, and I didn't really
pounded it.
Yeah, I didn't realize it at the time how big of a deal that was, but that's something that I still look back on, and I'm like, wow, that was
yeah.
pretty cool to be, from Charlestown and to dream about being in that scenario and having to have it happen. And BU had we had a tough few years there for a while, and they're kind of known as being the Beanpot school. So it was nice to get that back on the right side of ComAv.
And that was your
BC
junior year,
got the
right?
best of us. Yeah, that was my junior year. Yeah, we ended up going to the national championship that game, playing
Back at the
in the
Garden.
Garden. So
Yeah.
that was kind of a magical year. Tough ending, but
Yeah, that was wild ending.
Still, really cool just to having gone through that experience of, playing in BU, but getting to play the Frozen Four at the Garden was insane.
Yeah, you played with Nolo Chari, right?
Against him.
I thought you played with him for a brief stint there, but yeah, because we had him on.
Oh, at the with the Bruins, I played with him.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he was talking about winning the face-off and Tanev coming over the top, but so that should just really, sting it. So playing against Tanev, you should give him an extra little something for being able to put
Still
that
think
in.
about that quite often, actually.
Thanks for bringing that up.
I work out with Noel every day, and I'm pretty sure he has a tattoo of them when they won the national championship on his back shoulder blade, and so we'll make sure he doesn't go tarp off during the workout, or else it's gonna sting a little bit. I don't even know. Thinking like, why do we even let him work out at BU?
Yeah,
I know.
Beat us in the national championship, but that's all right.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
We got a lot of good pro guys over there now, so it's nice to have everyone around.
Oh, that's classic. Rewind a little bit back to the draft process. Going through it, obviously being a BU kid, or committed to BU under 18 guy. What was that like? Were you high expectations? Not really sure. What was the I know the draft's coming up here pretty soon. So what was it like for you?
I had very low expectations, to be honest. The game was a lot different back then. Not many, 5'9" defensemen at the time. So I had a ton of, we had a really good team, really good decor, guys who were all projected to go for second round. I didn't want to go to the draft at all. I didn't want to, go and not get drafted, but I was kind of convinced to go there and support some of my teammates on the U18 team, and thought I would kind of kick myself if I didn't end up being there for such a special day. And I'm very thankful that things ended up unfolding the way they did. But I didn't think for a second that the Bruins were even in the cards. To be honest, I just never let myself think that a certain team was going to pick me, and I was just hoping to get picked by anyone, to be honest. But just how it ended up playing out was, kind of a dream come true, and it was a whirlwind of a process. Back then, I didn't even know. I don't think kids knew like about development camp. Like, we got drafted, and they're like, "Yeah, we'll see you in a couple days." I'm like, "For what?" They're like, "Yeah, you're gonna go get absolutely bagged at Wilmington in the middle of July." So having that experience was a huge wake up call into pro hockey, and that was the draft was unbelievable. I ended up, my draft was in Pittsburgh. I ended up playing my first game against the Penguins. I ended up scoring my first goal against the Penguins. So a lot of history there, and it all kind of started 2012, and that decision to end up going was a dream come true.
And, as far as being a local kid and being drafted by the Bruins, you see some local guys come back and play a little bit later in their career. And, kind of when they are, more established and kind of understand their role or understand their game. Did you put any added pressure on yourself as you're coming through, from Providence to Boston? I mean, it's natural, but could you talk to us about your perspective and if there was anything like that along the way?
Yeah, I mean, you do kind of hear those things a little bit. Not, there's a little bit more pressure and expectation with growing up here and kind of having that added baggage, but it was nothing but a positive experience for me. I had so many good people in my corner, and one guy who was kind of there for me at the early stages of my career was Jimmy Hayes. He was there for my first couple games in the NHL. I was so nervous to step in the locker room, but I've known him and Kevin my whole life, and to have him and his family around was massive for me. He had been through it for a couple years there, so having someone who had that local connection really kind of made me feel at home with it. And after that point, just tried to not think about it too much, not put too much expectation. It's great to have so many family and friends around who are always there to support me, but I think it also helped that we've had some great teams over the years as well. And it always helps when you're winning games and you're playing the playoffs and having some success that way. So it's been, I can't say enough about being a Bruin and getting the chance to play in my hometown.
I mean, there must be some comfort level. Obviously, we didn't even touch on it, but your dad's worked at the Boston Garden, worked in the Bull Gang since, basically the Bunker Hill Day, whatever it started. Basically, he's worked there for well over 50 years, and obviously your brother John is an ice girl now, also working, and it must be those. What are those interactions like with you and young John?
Oh, they're awesome. You guys know how it works. Like sometimes now they have this the parents trip. They'll either have a mom's trip or a dad's trip. Last year they had a siblings trip.
Oh God!
And like most of the guys knew my brother just because being around the rink, and my dad likes to come just talk everyone's ear off left and right. So they kind of known my family for a couple of years, but we had a siblings trip. And obviously you have a lot of fun together, but it's funny to see the interactions after. Like we'll have a TV timeout and guys Posse's squirting them with a water bottle. It's really funny. The whole crew is literally pretty much, I would say 95% of the guys are from Charlestown. So I know all of them.
Right.
And I'm in between a TV timeout, doing a meat lap and just trying to get the legs going. But if it's a tight game, I'm not really saying anything, trying to keep to myself. But if we're up 5-1, I might go shoot the shit a little bit with some of the guys. It is really cool to have them around.
Well, and 2 Beanpot Hall of Famers too, right? His dad and you. I thought that was a really nice touch when they both honored both you and him at the same time.
That was really cool. Yeah, just for him to get recognized for being there for so long, and it was funny just because he was so embarrassed about it, and I think he knew all the guys, all of his friends from Charleston and stuff were just gonna just give him so much shit. What you didn't even play? How the hell did you get in the Beanpot Hall of Fame? So just to see the panic.
He made the ice. There wouldn't be games going on if it wasn't for Big John flooding the sheet.
Yeah. No, there's a serious side to it too. You just see how much pride he took because not only being there for the Bruins games, but he got to cover a lot of the BU and BC games as well. So those were that really hit home for him, and just to be able to go through that process with him was so cool for me. And we're very appreciative of them doing that. It was a nice touch.
Yeah, really nice.
What was it like? And this is kind of going back to the beginning because I know things change as you get older, but we get a lot of questions about this. And most people don't probably know it, but I know just from my family history and my father being friends with your father and my uncle Jocko. I think him and your dad played on the same line at Charlestown High School. And like he was a really good hockey player back in his day. So what was the pressure like from, mom and dad at home?
I had zero, literally from day one. I had no pressure. They only wanted me to do, you know, with what I loved. It didn't have to be hockey. It didn't have to be sports at all. They really just wanted me to get an education, and that's all they stressed as a kid. And I just happened to grow up loving hockey, like right from day one. I think I was skating, pushing the crate at 2, 3 years old. My dad had me over at the garden, but I never had any pressure from them whatsoever. They only said that, once you choose what you want to do, we're going to support you 100%. And you have to work as hard as you possibly can to get there. And to have that confidence from my parents made the world of difference. And I would be nowhere near where I am today without them.
That's great stuff because we hear a lot of different scenarios where parents are very kind of over the top and trying to drive and internally drive them, or externally actually. And to hear that, that's kind of what I experienced. My dad, mom, very supportive, and just it's pretty healthy when you hear it, and someone who's playing at the top level and has had the success that you have and the experiences that you've had, and that was the type of upbringing that you had and experiences. So that's good to hear. Good for our listeners to hear.
Yeah. No, I think it's super important. Obviously, everyone's different, but I think the love of the game has to come from within. And your parents are obviously there to support you, but they can't be the ones pushing you.
Well said.
Can you, and I don't want to take up too much of your time here, but just talk about that transition when you get to the Bruins and you're, in a locker room with guys grew up obviously idolizing, right? You're playing with guys like Zdeno Chara, with, Pasta, Bergeron, and clearly you're a Boston Bruins fan. You have no other option. That's for damn sure. But what was it like walking into that room, and what have you learned? Now being almost over 400 games into to your NHL career and being an NHL regular, like what have you learned from those type of guys?
Yeah, that's I still pinch myself about that. Like it's still the coolest thing to me. In between my stall at the practice rink, I'm in between Marshy and Bergie. Well, I guess when Bergie was still playing for a couple of years there, and that was just like every day I'd come in and I'm like, holy shit. Like I'm trying obviously not to have this reaction in front of them. I don't want to make them feel awkward, but two absolute legends, like you said, Z, Tuca, Krejci, like the guys I literally grew up watching, being a huge fan of. So I was very nervous to jump in the locker room. Obviously, they had a winning culture and been around for so long. I think when you're a new guy coming up, you don't want to step on anyone's toes. You just kind of want to blend in with the group. But those guys, right from day one, made me feel so welcome. Came right up to me, introduced themselves, just wanted me to, take me to dinners on the road or little things like that, just to make sure that you feel comfortable, and they go above and beyond. I've only had the opportunity to play with one team, but from what I've heard from guys on other teams, just how much those guys, reach out to you, whether you've just been traded here or been a free agent. It is remarkable, and it doesn't sound like a lot, but it does make a huge difference. Building that chemistry off the ice together, and I think it translates on the ice. And I think I've just learned, all that it takes to be a good pro. I've seen day in and day out how those guys take care of themselves, and um, how they, treat each other outside the locker room, how they do little things to set up, you know, just team building exercises away from the rink. Little things like that. I think they have so much leadership. They've seen it all. They've won at the highest level, and there's a reason why that they've had so much success for so long. And I think that my first couple of years, I'd try to be a sponge and soak that all up.
Yeah, it's an impressive culture. I was there briefly in 2012, but to see, the leaders such as like you're talking about Zdeno and Bergie, and there was like supplemental leaders. Everyone has a like kind of a say in like that supplemental leadership group. It's like holding each other accountable, in your peers, and that's like the healthiest when people are pulling the rope the right way and can hold you accountable.
Those guys are obviously special for a reason, but they don't feel like they have to be, the one guy to lead it. Like they really do it with the whole group, and they want to, bring some younger guys along, and they know that they're not going to be playing for forever. So they're going to want to, show them the ropes and make sure that Bruins culture lives on. And I think that that's something that they pride themselves on. And it's been a huge reason why they've, been a playoff contender year in and year out.
Oh, this Matt, this has been great. We appreciate you taking the time. I think there's a lot of great points that you made here for kids and parents just that listen to the show. So we really appreciate you taking the time. Motts, you got anything else for him before we let this guy go?
Yeah, we're not looking for any scoops or anything, but we wish you the best in UFA. Hopefully back with the Bees and contract negotiations. But yeah, we just wish you the best, and hopefully things work out for you.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, thank you for having me on. This is great, and I appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you guys soon.
All right, buddy.
All right,
thanks
see you guys.
We'll see you.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Thanks.
See you later.